Okay, so here we are again. It is July 6th, and we can probably get a good sense of exactly how much growth we have here in our vineyard, here at the Clark Fork Estates. Notice how we're now up at the first trellising wire, actually the only trellising wire at this point. We likely will add some more wire in, probably below this existing wire right now. Our goal here is to end up actually trellising these vines as I try and place one in here. Let's see here. There we go. Hopefully that one will decide to cooperate there. There we go. Our goal here is to actually establish some good root structure, and also we're going to make an attempt at establishing some cordons this year. Surprisingly, most, if not all, of the Pinot survived the winter onslaught. Again, we had some temperatures down in the negative 10s, all the way down to negative 18 at one point. That was a little scary for us vinifera-loving wine growers. The problem that we have currently is the fact that we also have French-American hybrids, and unfortunately the French-American hybrids, which we'll see a little bit later, actually, I believe some of them probably died. So we probably had some level of vine kill. Typically, French-American hybrid vines like Maréchal Foch, which is the vine in question, typically will survive down to negative 15, ideally. Unfortunately, they're young vines, and we did have a little bit of trouble getting some good carbohydrates in the ground, and there was not as much vegetative growth as I would have preferred. Mainly due to lack of irrigation. We just put the irrigation system in middle of last year, so we weren't able to put as much water on the vines as we would have preferred. And here's our first example. As we kind of look down over here to our left and we look at our rows of Pinot, they look nice and full and lush. And we come over here to our Foch, and interestingly, this particular Foch is on a 3309C rootstock. That may have been a mistake. And as we look here, we have our vines here that indicate not only is it Foch, but it's on a 3309C rootstock. And unfortunately, I think where we bought the farm, so to speak, was at the graft joint. And there is one vine, actually, here in the middle of this particular row that appears to have made the cut. That's the good news. The bad news is I have a sneaking suspicion that that is the 3309C rootstock that has decided to come out through the ground, because the graft joint is actually above where the growth is. So I believe that's cheating. It doesn't count. So alternatively, I think we have some good stuff here. So we'll see how this pushes through the rest of the year. We do have some late budding right in here, so hope springs eternal that we will continue to grow this year. Unfortunately, a good chunk of this row is not viable, and that is regrettable. But again, in these northern climate environments, we are challenged constantly. Andy over at 10 Spoon found that out earlier this year as I hosed down some of the millions of mosquitoes that are here. 10 Spoon. Andy found out earlier this year that he got into somewhat of a problem with frost, as well as we did earlier in the year. And he lost a good chunk of his crop, unfortunately. But again, we won't know until the end of the year just how much of a loss that was. Maybe it wasn't as bad as we think, which would be great. There aren't a lot of us viticulturists here in Montana, and the ones that do exist are definitely a hardy folk. They do not take no for an answer, and neither will I. And here's Troy's favorite vine. This vine actually has a name, apparently, Bob. So we got to give Bob some props. He wasn't looking too good even 2 weeks ago, and look where he's at now. I guess he just has his own schedule. So we're going to move on to some other vines right now, and we might even move on to the hops here. We'll come back in a minute.